I'm Carol Van Ornum of the Civil War Roundtable Congress. Today we're talking with Bill Miller of the Williamsburg Civil War Roundtable. Hello, Bill, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
The Civil War Roundtable Congress created an initiative to interview roundtable leaders for the purpose of sharing their successes and their challenges. We also hope that they will offer some ideas and perspectives which will help other roundtables grow. So let's start with you, Bill. Tell us a little bit about your background, your education, your career, and why you have an interest in the Civil War.
I equate my background to an essay that I read a number of years ago that was written by Bruce Catton. He equated a train ride, a train journey, as a metaphor for life. So I boarded the train at early dawn about 3 months prior to the invasion of Normandy, and grew up in a small town on the eastern shore of Maryland that had a few hints of what would soon become a passion of my life, and with respect to the study of this history of the Civil War. There was a monument on in the public square that honored the names of both Union and Confederate soldiers who fought in the Civil War that grew up in my town and in Kent County, Maryland, which is kind of unique, but that's the way it was. And so I didn't come to know those details until later on. But when I got into elementary school, one of the first places that I visited during a vacation was we were making a tour of Western Maryland, and by golly, I made my first visit to Antietam Battlefield. That's second or third grade. So and then a little later on in Little League Baseball, the left side of the infield, which was me and my second baseman, who claimed a Civil War ancestor, Captain William Raisin, who was a cavalry officer that fought for the Confederacy and made it all the way to Appomattox and lived to tell the story. So then moving on, we moved to Silver Spring when I was a teenager, and by golly, I went to Montgomery Blair High School. Montgomery Blair was the Postmaster General of Abraham Lincoln, and attended a church in Silver Spring that had a monument marking the burial of Confederate Civil War soldiers who were casualties during Jubal Early's exposition to the outskirts of Washington and the Battle of Fort Stevens. By that time, I really was not a huge Civil War fan, but the first books that I read were books that were written by Bruce Catton, so that got me hooked before I went off to college. And I ended up at Georgia Tech down in Atlanta, and by golly, there was a monument or the marker on the campus at Tech that marked the site of a Confederate fortification. And we weren't too many yards away from the Marietta Road, where the mayor of Atlanta came out to meet General Sherman to hand him the keys to the city. Moving on into my career, we're about midday on that train ride by now, and my first job was on a construction site at Duke University up in Durham, North Carolina. And by golly, there's Bennett Place right outside of town. So I was bouncing around maybe like Forrest Gump between different Civil War hints about what was to come. And a few years later, I moved on from a construction job in Durham up to Hagerstown, and that's really where I got hooked. picked up battles and leaders of the Civil War. I'm not that far from Gettysburg. I'm not that far from South Mountain. I'm right down the street from Antietam and the Valley Campaign. And so that really got me motivated, and then moved to Richmond. And here we are, here I was at ground zero, so to speak. So my career has taken me from early dawn through midday to evening time now, and with my passion now for the history of the Civil War. It's been an enjoyable ride, and I still got miles to march.
Thank you.
So that's my story.
It's a nice metaphor. How long have you been the leader of your roundtable?
I began attending the roundtable meetings in Williamsburg about back 2010, 14 years ago. At first, I was a casual observer, but one of the leaders of the executive committee was a fellow that we had come to know each other and became friends on local tours that have been that we participated in. So he said, "Well, Billy, why don't you come on and join the roundtable? We need somebody to fill out our executive committee." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll do that." And so I got started that way as a regular attendee, and I found a niche by giving the executive committee names of speakers that I had heard or seen recently on my various Civil War travels to battlefields or other locations where seminars or conferences were given. And so I got into that element of providing the leadership for the roundtable. And then when the president retired, I was elected to be president, and I've been president off and on probably since 2016 time frame, and have thoroughly enjoyed it, and kept up the pace with the providing the good speakers that we have, and it's been a pleasant experience, and we've been successful.
Thank you. What was your assessment of your roundtable when you first took over?
The roundtable was founded back in 1976, and we had an established meeting format, which was basically what that was our forte. We didn't do dinners, we didn't do tours, and so on and so forth. But we had a great meeting venue, and still do, with the theater as part of the Williamsburg Regional Library. It seats a couple hundred folks, and it's got a nice full screen stage and so on and so forth. Plenty of the features that you need for audio and visual presentations, for PowerPoints and so forth. And our local attendees and members, it's a pretty centralized location for them, so everybody seems to be very comfortable with it. And so that's been what we've been good at, and we just sticking with what's been our best success.
And you've stayed in that same location the whole time?
Yeah, since I've been established, or I've been a member, which now you'd say 14 years, we've been meeting at the library theater. We only had one time that didn't happen, and that was because of a problem with one of the utilities was not working properly, and they said, well, you just can't come in. It's just, we have to get this fixed before we can let the public come back. So we went next door to an assembly hall and had our program there. But it's been a wonderful location. We have a great relationship with the library folks, and the rent's very reasonable too. So that makes it nice.
Great. Have you made any changes with your roundtables since you've become the leader?
Not really. We're established with our meeting format, and everyone seems to be pleased with it. And I'll continue to try to press to get some of the best current speakers to come to our roundtable. Couple of highlights. We've had Bud Robertson come to our roundtable a couple of times. The last visit that he made was maybe a year or so before he passed away. And I think the most enjoyable program that we did was to get Cwrt Fields and Tom Jesse to come to the roundtable after they'd made their an appearance at Appomattox in early April 2021, and they do a program about Appomattox the last 2 days, about the exchange of letters between Grant and Lee, and we invited them to come on over to Williamsburg and do their program, and I think that was the first time that they had done that particular program away from Appomattox, and we set that up in the library theater and had them up on the stage, and had a great crowd, and it was a great success. And while they were in town, we in the area, so to speak, carried them up to we visited Fort Pocahontas up on the James River, which is not a well-known Civil War site, but there was a battle there in 1864 where U.S. colored troops occupied this fort. They had actually built it to protect the commerce on the James River. And they were attacked by Confederate cavalry elements under Fitzhugh Lee, and by golly, the U.S. CT troops fended off the fight and were very successful with it. That property has been reclaimed now by the Harrison family, and it's a hidden gemstone that we like to use to show to our visitors that come to see us. In any event, we did the tour with Fort Pocahontas, and then I took them up to the Fredericksburg area, and we did a tour with Chris Mitkowski on Spotsylvania and Wilderness, and that was a great tour for both Tom and Cwrt, because Cwrt had never been to the Wilderness battlefield. Tom had been there when he was just a little tyke, and he grew up in Leesburg, but moved away a number of years during his childhood, and so they had a chance to get refreshed on their Civil War personas at those two battlefields, and it was a great opportunity for them.
Nice. So besides that shining moment, are there any other shining or valuable moments that you've had, any accomplishments that you want to share?
One more I'll share with you. Eric Wittenberg is a wonderful speaker. He's a cavalry expert, to be sure. And we had invited him to come to speak to our roundtable in the latter part of September a couple years ago. And our meetings are on Tuesday nights, and he was supposed to be up in Middleburg for an event that following weekend. And so when he and his wife came to Williamsburg, I said, why don't you all just stay here until maybe Thursday or Friday morning, and I'll give you a tour around the different places. So and Eric was interested in that because he wanted to set up a tour with the Chambersburg group. And so we went to Fort Monroe and we went to Fort Pocahontas and went to some of the sites associated with the Battle of Williamsburg and some of the Confederate fortifications down in Newport News that were part of the early Warwick River line that held McClellan off for about a month early in 1862. So it gave him a chance to see those places that he would eventually take a busload of tourists and Civil War enthusiasts to share the history of our area in Virginia Peninsula area. And of course, the latest one was the folks from the round table up in New Jersey, Old Baldy. They came down and sponsored a Civil War Trail sign, which was just featured or dedicated this past May, a little over a month ago, to interpret the actions of some New Jersey troops that fought in the Battle of Williamsburg. So we have a lot of wonderful experiences and memories there.
It sounds like you treat your speakers very well. Do you want to talk about how you do that and what's important to you for them?
With the speakers, well, what I try to do is pretty simple. Whether it be a speaker or a member or a guest, whoever comes to our roundtable and I have an opportunity to meet with and have a short conversation or even a long conversation. My philosophy is simple. I'd say to, I don't say this to my people I'm talking to, but the idea is this is my last chance to make a good first impression. And I have lived by that mantra, if you want to call it that, for most of my employment career. And in construction, that can get to be pretty interesting because you have a whole different group of personalities when you're dealing with folks that are builders, and every one of them seems to know more than I do. So it's fun to try to get along with them and win their confidence. But I do that all the time. When members come in prior to the meeting or guests come in, I try to take a few minutes to meet them and strike up a short conversation with them and just let them know that we feel they're felt welcome here. And so that works. And it's just a way, it's just a natural thing that you do. And but I enjoy that part of it, and got a lot of friends that way too.
Good, thank you. So has there been a continuing challenge that you have faced, and if so, what is it?
Well, I told you when I was I gave you a clue when I was born, so you know now that if you add it up, it's 80, and you can figure that out. So in the next few years, and I don't know whether it be 2 or 5 or 10, maybe I prefer 10, we're going to have to make some changes and refresh our executive committee and our outlook for the roundtable. Now, our audience, our captive audience, is basically retired folks that have moved from somewhere to Williamsburg, because Williamsburg happens to be a destination place. I'm in a friend's house who has moved here from Baltimore, and I know any number of members that have moved from other places to Williamsburg to spend their retirement years. So we have a great source of retirees that are looking for something to do and looking to have some entertainment and so on and so forth. So we can draw upon that. One of the things I want to do is go around to some of these retirement communities and speak to their social directors and say, yeah, you need to come, you need to bring your people over here to the library for these meetings, because we can really teach you a lot about Civil War history. And so that's a good recruiting source for us, even though we're recruiting the so-called seniors, which is a polite way to say old people. But you know, that's who we like to hang out with. So that's where we're going to have to do. And the young seniors will come and the old ones will go. And at some point in time, I'll be one of those old seniors that needs to step down, and sooner or later I'll find the right person to step in to carry the torch and move forward. So that's the plan.
Have you done anything to market to a younger crowd?
Say that again. I missed that.
Have you done anything to market to a younger crowd?
Well, the marketing part of it, I've worked a little bit with Drew Gruber and with Civil War Trails, and I'm working a little bit now too with the Williamsburg Battlefield Association, which is associated with the actual preservation aspects of some of the sites around Williamsburg. And I have a good relationship with the local Sons of Confederates Veterans group. As a matter of fact, they've got a dinner tonight that I'll be attending, and so I have a number of friends there, and you know, those folks are supportive of the round table, and we get some visitors, and some of their members attend, and also they bring a few visitors. So we're getting some of that outreach and so forth, and that's a good thing.
For sure. So is there someone in your sphere who's been a mentor or an inspiration to you? And if so, who would that be?
Well, over 20 years ago, I moved to the Yorktown area in 1989. So I've been a resident in Yorktown now for 24 and 11, 35 years. Over 20 years of that time has been a regular attendee on tours that are provided by an historian who works for the City of Newport News, and he does van tours. It carries about a dozen Civil War enthusiasts to various battlefield sites associated with the Civil War, as well as the Revolutionary War. And so he has been a mentor of sorts, even though he's younger than me. He's the historian, and so he's done the studies, and he's got the shingle to hang on the wall that says that he knows the stories well, and he does a wonderful job of presenting those stories. And so he's pretty much been a mentor of sorts, and has helped me learn about our local history, as well as history of battles and events that have taken place in other areas in the so-called Eastern Theater of the Civil War in Virginia.
Thank you. Where do you see your roundtable in the next 5 years?
Well, as I said earlier, we're going to have to transition to new leadership, and that'll probably be starting this coming year as we pick up our new season in September. We take the summer off, but we'll pick up the new season in September. We got a full schedule of speakers that are already lined up, and I got thoughts about the following season beyond that. But I need to bring some more people into our executive committee to help out with some of the outreach efforts to bring in members, and also to help welcome the members and guests that come to the meetings and so forth. So that's something that's going to be necessary as we move forward, and it'll be done in a probably a gradual way, without too many, not a massive overhaul or anything like that. But we'll be adding new elements to our executive committee for people that are interested in being part of it. Some are and some aren't. Some like just come listen, and that's fine. And then there are some that have good suggestions and so on and so forth that we welcome.
Thank you. Have you considered becoming a sister roundtable to another roundtable, or are you?
Well, we don't have a formal relationship with another roundtable. In other words, the Williamsburg roundtable does not collaborate as a roundtable with another roundtable. Now, that said, I have friends in other roundtables that I have met over a number of years that have led me to establish memberships in other roundtables. The first one I joined up with was the Hagerstown Roundtable, which is, I met a guy up there that when we were doing the sesquicentennial events up in the Fredericksburg area, and he says, "Why don't you come to one of our roundtable meetings and join us?" And I said, "Well, you know what? I think I'll do that." And that was in 2015, and I've been a member of the Hagerstown Roundtable ever since. I send them a dues check, and I try to go to a couple of meetings a year, and I've got friends up there that I enjoy visiting with, and likewise. And by golly, that's where I was able to recruit Scott Mingus for his first visit to our roundtable. So that was a home run all the way. I also have established friendships with folks over in the Hampton Roads Civil War Roundtable. They're over in Virginia Beach now. And I've run into folks from the Bull Run Roundtable out in the valley when we're doing Civil War tours out there at the various battle sites. So I'll send them a dues check. I'm a member there. I'll listen in on their Zoom talks. I've been to one of their meetings, and I even joined Old Baldy because they helped them find the right spot for their Civil War sign, and so I got to know some of the members there, and so that's it. Well, I'll just send them a check, join up. And I like to listen in on some of those Zoom talks. It's fun. And I'm working on Richmond now. I sent them a check recently, but I haven't been up to one of their meetings yet. But it won't be too long before I make the trip, because it's not that far away. So that's my sister story. It's just me and a few other pals that I hang out with. But there are a few of our members that also would probably enjoy making a short ride to another roundtable meeting, and that's a lot of fun.
And have you considered filling out, doing the sustainability challenge?
I've looked at that, and we can fill in a few blanks, but not all of the blanks. You know, I look at the items that are listed as required, and if there's three, I might be one out of three or 2 out of 3, and then the elective items, sometimes there's 3, 4, 5, and I can check off a couple of them, but not. I can't get to the numbers that we need to make it a viable program, and part of it is due to the fact that we have so much of an established setup with our roundtable, and so it's a little bit dicey, I think, to try to make any sort of dramatic changes to those of us seniors who are all already established in our ways. So I'm not averse to the sustainability challenge. I think it's a great tool for any roundtable, and I look at it and see some of the activities that well, you know, I think we could probably put a check mark by that one, and if we just do this one or two more things, and so I'm kind of nibbling away at it, I guess you'd say, and I hope I can fill it out one of these days before I get to be too old.
I hope so too. So is there anything else you'd like to share about your roundtable? Any more successes or challenges or ideas?
Oh, one of the things I've started doing lately, I picked this up at after reading another memoir of a Confederate soldier named Sam Watkins. He was a member of the regiment in Tennessee, fought at Bull Run, and made it through the end of the war in the same regiment. And 20 years later, he wrote his memoirs basically for his family members, children, but the folks in his hometown heard those stories, and they liked them too. So I think they put some of them in a newsletter or a newspaper. He wrote his book, and it's called Company H, and it's spelled the way you pronounce it if you're from Tennessee. And I'm not going to try to spell it. But he talks about the sideshow of the big show, or the sideshows of the big show. He was a private, and he was not involved in the strategy of moving troops and so on and so forth. He was just a grunt in the line. And he talked about his observations and his adventures, if you want to call it that, in battle and on the march and in the camp, and related some wonderful stories. And that led me to the conclusion, or the idea, to not only try to put together programs talking about battles, but also talking about other things that are related to the life of the Union soldiers and the Confederate soldiers, and their misery and their victories and so on and so forth. So we mix it up with those stories. And just recently, we were at the reunion for the Fort Pocahontas reenactment, which happens the 1st June. And we were sitting under the tent, and I walked over and started talking to this fella who was dressed in a Union uniform, and he was portraying the role of a United States colored troop. And I had missed his talk earlier because I got to the reenactment late. But one of my friends said he gave a great talk earlier in the afternoon. You well to go talk with him. So in that conversation that led, I'm a prospector for speakers now all the time. That led me, that just conversation with him, I found out about him. He's a retired Navy pilot, captain, so a high rank. And he's telling the story about the U.S. colored troops. And I said, why don't you come to our roundtable next year and share your story with our group? Sure enough, he'll be coming. So that's one of those things that I really enjoy doing and getting lucky at it, I guess. But it takes persistence. It takes persistence.
It takes a nice personality too.
And that's one of the side shows of the big show. Just like the Confederate submarine Hunley, that story. That's a side show of the big show. We had a guy from the Hunley Foundation come up to speak to us this past year, and he did a wonderful talk.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for joining us today. It was very interesting. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.